where we focus on how we make use of the equations, right, given in the question, describing C, I, and G. And with the money demand, money supply, we formulated the IS function and then the LM function. Right, so in this case, you could see we are in the third segment of our topic 5, meaning bringing IS and LM together. So the objective of bringing them together is to simultaneously solve income and interest rates, which you actually require the discussion of your IS function, LM function. Alright, so in our discussion, we formulated, okay, we had IS as our standard downward sloping straight line that we saw. Okay, in this case, intercept was 56, slope was upon 0.03. Then we also formulated our LM, I is 0.02. So in such question, alright, we don't question the validity of the function. Although we know LM should not have a zero axis, but this question really says an economy. So we don't need to bother whether it is valid in the real world. So in this case, right, with our IS1 and with our LM1, we can solve for our income, right, being 1120, okay, and our interest rate 22.4. And I reminded you, because the use of calculator is not allowed. So if you couldn't get 1120, you left it as a fraction, it's perfectly fine. Alright, so don't get obsessed with, alright, getting the right value. It's not crucial. Alright, what examiner wants to see is how you formulate your IS, how you formulate your LM. Okay, then part C, a very standard question. Right, government likes to change either the G or the T. Right, so in this case, government increased the G. Then in this case, right, I highlighted to you method 2. I prefer you to use method 2, right, which is a more simplified manner to get your new IS. Because you know your G bar affects your A bar, affects the intercept. Alright, so in this case, you merely go to your IS function, add the intercept by a 10. So from an intercept of 56 becomes 66. Then you solve again, right, your income and interest rate. Okay, of course I mentioned you can fall back on the traditional method 1. Alright, okay, if you use method 2, doesn't mean you get extra marks. However, it is very time efficient. Right, so examiner is not looking at how long your answer is, but how you solve it. So you will want to use the fastest, right, and the most clear-cut method. Okay, so that was question A to C, where we merely constructed ISLM, solving income and interest rates. Okay, then in our last lecture, we started off with our fiscal policy. Well, I'm still in page 27, right, don't turn, this is page 29. That we discussed, right, using the same question, if government were to spend $100, IS will shift from E1 to E3. Alright, however, the economy will not end at E3. Through the goods and money market adjustment, it will actually end up at E2. Alright, in this case, we say there was a crowding out effect from E2 to E3. Alright, and our discussion has shown, however, if we have a horizontal LM where interest rate is fixed, then when fiscal policy takes place, E1 to E3, and it will stop there. So in this case, there will be no crowding up. So this question is actually repeated in the calculation question, part D to F. Alright, so it's a very standard practice in exam to keep testing crowding up. Whenever they test change in government spending, the next segment they will test is always crowding up. So let's look at our discussion, okay, in part D to F. Okay, so the question was the same, but you have to read very carefully. Okay, so part D, the question was the same, that is change in G bar is still 100. Okay, and they told you change in T bar is 0. Okay, so We have done this in part C. Right, we know the change in A bar over B2 was 10. Right, and our new IS2 was 66 minus 0.031. Right, so it's the same question because government increased spending. We need to find our new IS. We did it in part C already, okay, which I quickly review with you. So we need an LM. So the question here says, alright, under the assumption that the central bank keeps interest rate constant at 22.4. Alright, so we move on to the next segment. Given interest rate is fixed at 22.4. This actually implies LM is horizontal. Alright, so what the question is actually asking you in this discussion, right, so we'll still draw the diagram. So this is a quick recap what we did last week in page 27. Initially, we had our IS1, intercept was 56. Now we have our IS2, intercept was 66. Alright, so in this case we know government's spending went up, okay, shifting the IS. But what the question wanted in part D, right, is to tell us that the LM is actually horizontal. Right, at 22.4. So when they say government fixed interest rate at 22.4, it means no matter where is the income, there is only one interest rate. Right, where interest rate cannot go up, okay, because if LM is horizontal, H2 is infinity. That if you were to raise interest rate, right, the entire money market will react to buy FA. They cannot hold. Right, similarly, if you were to drop interest rate, everybody will sell FA. The money market again cannot hold. So when you have a fixed interest rate, it simply just means, right, your LM has to be horizontal. So in this case, you could see we were initially at point A, income was Y1, 1120. Okay, but now IS shifted rightwards. We move to point B. Okay, so in other words, you merely saw, okay, IS2 with 22.4, that's all. Okay, and you will get an answer. We call this your Y3, 1453.33. Okay, alright, so you merely solve IS equals to LM. Right, take these two equations, right, you use it to find your Y3, which is quite simple. Just put this interest rate inside. You will get your Y3, 1453.33. Right, so what do you see here? Okay, the IS shifted rightwards, no change in interest rates. Alright, there was nearly the full multiplier effect. Government spent 100, economy expanded more than 100 because of the multiplier. But interest rate stays the same. Okay, so in this case, you will tell the examiner, okay, G increase, Y increase, money demand goes up, which means it's more than money supply. Remember, you cannot see money demand and money supply in ISLM. It's an intuition, right, that you understand from the backroom analysis. Okay, so interest rate should increase. That was what we learned last lecture. The money market will actually push interest rate to go up. But because I is fixed, okay, there will be no change in interest rate, therefore no change in investment, meaning there will be no crowding out. Right, so you could see in part D, although they merely asked you to find equilibrium output and then the multiplier, indirectly the question is asking you, right, why do you have this phenomenon? What does this phenomenon actually tell you? crowding out. There was only the full fiscal expansion. Alright, okay? If you actually compare to the earlier diagram in part A to C, there was crowding out because interest rate push up. There was a fall in investment. But now, there isn't. Alright, just merely IS shift to point B and the economy stopped at point B. So this is actually the most ideal outcome. Okay, right? So in this case, fiscal policy is most